So when they went on stage this time, it was like the Cryptid Factor with Rhys Darby, Dan Schreiber, and Buttons. And the crowd just went nuts. Like, everyone was like cheering and clapping. And it was a really big thing that Buttons was on the titles because he never has been. And they were all hugging, the boys were hugging. And it was just so lovely and heartwarming. And I absolutely loved it.
And they also announced that he would be on them going forward in theory. So that's...
So I was actually initially going to talk about the cool thing where Taika is wearing the bracelet that someone gave to Buttons at the Edinburgh Fringe show. And that was the big thing. So I was going to write a whole thing about it. But then today, I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, Taika is wearing the shirt that Buttons wore at the Fringe. So what are your commentaries on that? I want to hear what your reactions are to that.
I think that, Taika has just seen the newest big celebrity coming out of New Zealand and is like, I've got to copy him. He's an influencer now.
That's exactly it. Well, the t-shirt's by an artist called Jock Mooney, who is actually Scottish. So I was wondering if Buttons bought it and then maybe got one for Taika, or Taika just nicked it.
See, I think Taika did like a let's swap clothes, and then Buttons took his clothes off, and then Taika was like, actually, I've changed my mind. So like he just takes Buttons' clothes, and then he's like, I don't want to give mine, actually, they're really expensive. So like I can't understand otherwise why he's like wearing Buttons' bracelet and Buttons' t-shirt.
Just two things to comment on. I don't know which to comment on first, but the Buttons hysteria, the kind of like, this is Buttons fame era. Everyone is like, we love Buttons. And some people are like, I think I love Buttons more than Rhys. Scandalous. But for those of you who have gotten to see Buttons live and in person, what is he like?
Oh, he's just so precious.
I mean, Rosie saw him the most times.
He's just so lovely. So I'm actually on the cocktail tier of the Cryptid Factor Patreon.
Which is that the most expensive tier?
No, not quite. There's another one that's the most expensive, but you don't get any extra from that, and they don't know why anyone is on that one.
Oh, what does the cocktail tier get you?
So the cocktail tier gets you every month. Buttons and his daughter Helena run a cocktail night on Zoom, which they usually will make up like a cryptid themed cocktail. We have to try and guess what it is, but it's basically 2 hours of people getting drunk together, hosted by Buttons and Helena.
Oh, wow.
So because I've been doing that since it launched, basically, so like 1.5 years, 2 years almost, we'd already had that familiarity with each other. So I already knew he's like the loveliest man on earth. But then in real life, he's just so nice. Like everyone on the cocktail night, he was being like, "Oh, you're here."
Okay, I'm gonna get rich and do the cocktail tier. This sounds way delightful.
I think for me it was like I love Rhys, but I'm not like a Rhys girly. Rhys he's quite guarded, I think, very reasonably. And I felt like Buttons after the show was like, hi, it's so nice to meet you, what's this? And was like literally like bringing people in, sign stuff. And so like you just very naturally, it was like, wow, like not that there's anything wrong with being guarded, of course, like I get it, but it was just like the enthusiasm was so infectious that within like 10 minutes I was like, this guy is like the nicest guy on earth, because genuinely he was obviously just like finding the experience kind of wild, I think, and just going with it. I mean, they told us like the first night they got there, they'd gone out clubbing till like 5 a.m. Like I think they were really like enjoying the Fringe experience because the bars are all open like all night. I think he was really like loving it. And it was the enthusiasm, like genuinely I was like, wow, like this feels like I'm meeting someone who, like Ro was saying, like I felt, I'm not in the cocktail tier, but I felt like I knew him almost, like just from that enthusiasm. It was really sweet.
That's amazing.
He's like a puppy.
Yeah. So let's introduce you all. This is I don't know what I'm going to call this, the Cryptid Factor episode where we talk about the live shows and get one-on-one first-hand experience from the people who were actually there. And we have Hattie back on the pod. Hattie.
Hello, friends.
Known as Baby Kraken Podficker from England. And we have Alice, who is a medieval historian from Northern England. Say hello, Alice. And we have Ro, who is a fanfic writer and fan from Scotland. And actually, since you're a fanfic writer, this is your chance to pitch. What's your favorite fanfic that you've written that we should all check out?
The one that I feel like most people know is, if you're around in the start of fandom, there's one called The Turn of a Page, which I wrote in like April, May 2022, about professional author Ed, newly self-published author Steed, which I wrote based on Worldcon coming to Glasgow in 2024. And I like that one because it's the first one, like, long fic I ever wrote. There was my Reverse Big Bang from last year, which was art by Ferry Wind, which is called The Grey Lighthouse. I'm really proud of that one. But the one that is like closest to my heart is called The Importance of a Moment, which is sort of a character study of what if Steed had gone to the dock, and like what if Chauncey hadn't woken him up. And it's sort of like a character study that I used. I wrote it way back in 2022, but I didn't publish it till this year. And I had canon Steed is autistic, so it was kind of like a deep character study dive into him being autistic as a way to process my own autism diagnosis. So that one's the one that's closest to my heart.
I love
Sounds
that.
beautiful.
And Hattie, maybe you should podfic that one.
Do you have it podficked?
No, I don't.
Well, I'm making a connection here. We always do a little segment called What's the Most Gay Pirate Thing to Happen to You Recently? Who wants to go first?
So yesterday I recorded a load of podfics. I really took method podficking to the next level, did it while dressed as Kraken Ed. Yay, that was fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was trying out my...
Like with the black
cosplay.
makeup.
Oh yeah, and the hair. I had the extensions and the outfit, and you know, it was helpful, I feel. Really got the angst going on.
Yeah, very cool. And Alice, what's the most gay pirate thing to happen to you recently?
See, I found this question really tough. I was like, that's happened to me, or that I've done? Like,
Anything. Really, some people go off topic on this, and it's fine as long as you have a funny story to tell.
okay, it's not even a funny story, and it's going to be absolutely terrible for a podcast, but I'm just going to show you guys anyway.
Terrible
Amazing.
is good too. Traumatic is a good.
Do you remember water games from when you were a kid where you'd like push the buttons and the little
Yes.
plastic
I love
things
this.
would go round? So, you know, there'd be like one or two buttons and there'd be like rings or basketballs or whatever. For about 6 months, I was like, I really want one with Merseed like inside it. And I just finished making it today. I'm just really happy with it.
It's
So I can just sit
so
and
good.
press
Yeah.
it, basically.
I
It's
saw this on
adorable.
Twitter. It's okay. So it's hard to describe, but if you remember these little games, sometimes you get them as stocking stuffers for Christmas.
Yeah, or like in party bags or like what, you know, like the dollar store, I guess. Like,
Yeah, they're like little
They're not
plastic
expensive.
games that have like water inside them and two little buttons, and you push them to blow the water. And then there's little rings inside, and you're trying to get the rings onto various things. So this one has Mersteed on the back of it. And how did you make that?
it's just a cross stitch. So I just bought like one of these water games and I was able to peel the back, which was a unicorn. So I was like, oh my God, I'm getting cancelled before I started. Peel the unicorn off, wash the unicorn away, and then replace it with Steed. Because I can't draw it, it was like, I'll make a cross stitch. But I like that it's kind of pixely as well. It's like kind of vintage, like slightly retro thing. And I keep forgetting that it's or mistaking it for my phone. So I have literally tried to put it in a phone case today. I keep picking it up to check the time.
You should scan it in and do them as phone covers. It'd be so good.
Yes, exactly. But so that's the most gay pirate thing I've done, I guess.
I love it. And Ro, what's your gay pirate story?
Today I booked for my family. We're all going to go to a Ren fair. Ren fairs don't really happen in the UK. Like we don't really have any, but there's a company that has started doing like one a year in the Cotswolds. And I started getting all these messages on like all these videos on my TikTok, and I was like, this looks like a real Ren fair, not like a medieval reenactment, which is fun. And it's not like the whimsy that I'm looking for. So I saw it and I sent the link to my friends and I was like, do you guys want to? Like, it's going to be a hell of a trip, but you guys want to? And everyone immediately was like, yes. So we're doing it. We're going to a Ren fair.
And what's the theory on why Ren fairs aren't a thing in the UK? Is it because you guys are surrounded by history? And so it's like, what's the big deal? Whereas in the US, it's like we have no history. And so we're like...
I feel like it's partly to do with that. And I also feel like Brits in general are a little bit more reserved. So like if you say to people, we're going to go to this fair, we're all going to like dress up as fairies or like hobbits or whatever, you're going to get a lot of people like, don't you think that's a bit much? You know? So since like social media has really taken off and people have feel more confident being like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I feel like that's why it's taken off. We're starting to see it now.
I love that. So globalization is slowly making the UK less reserved and more cringe as the US.
I mean,
Hey, there's no cringe, only sparkle.
Let's talk cryptid factor. Before we get into what actually happened with the lives and everything, I want to hear from you guys. How did you first discover the cryptid factor, and like, why did you start listening to it?
Well, we haven't mentioned Dan yet, Dan Schreiber, who is the third member of the Cryptid Factor team, who I think we all love.
What? I thought it was the Buttons and Reese show. Oh, yeah, Dan. Oh, yeah.
So, do you know about QI, right, in America?
No.
With Stephen Fry. Oh, okay. So QI in the UK is a TV show, and it's like a comedy general facts quiz show thing. It used to be presented by Stephen Fry, who quite a lot of people know, but there's always like different people on it and things. And so it's facts based, and there's this team of researchers who research all the facts called the QI elves. And Dan is a QI elf, and they have their own podcast, and which is excellent. It's very funny.
And huge, like one of the biggest podcasts in the UK, like
500 million downloads.
Okay. What's that one called?
No Such Thing as a Fish.
Okay. That's that one. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm putting it all together now. Okay.
And I've been listening to Fish for years and years and years, and I adore Dan. Like, he's hilarious. He's the one who's kind of a bit out there of the team. And I was like, oh, he does another podcast which is about like Bigfoot and stuff. So I started listening to that like way before I watched Our Flag, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. It's got that funny New Zealand guy on it. So it's basically because of Dan and Fish that I started listening to Cryptid Factor. And then when Our Flag came out, I was like, that's the guy from the podcast.
Wow. I only started listening to Cryptid Factor because of Our Flag and Reese. And I'm like, what else has he done? And then I found out about, and it was so crazy because like I've been into cryptids and stuff for like the longest time. And then I'm like, wait a minute, the guy who's on the show that I suddenly became obsessed with also has a podcast about cryptids. What? My brain is exploding. What about
all
you?
Your interests.
I know. How are these things that I like coming together so crazily?
So I've got 2 Australian friends who are like huge Flight of the Conchords fans. So I think we talked to, like, they love Rhys Darby. So I think like years ago we actually talked about the Cryptid Factor, like back when Dan Schreiber was not on it. And I think I listened to like a couple, and I thought it was really funny, but you know what these things are like, you know, life kind of intervenes. And then once I started watching Our Flag, I was like, I need to pick this back up, and I listened to it again, and I was like, this is great. But again, it didn't quite stick, and it was only for me when they announced the Edinburgh show that I just went like, right, I've got to listen to like every single episode. And so sign up for the Patreon, just went like, so mine is a really recent kind of deep dive for all that I've known about it for quite a long time. So that's kind of how I got into it, I guess, with basically the live show and being like, right, time to get serious about this.
Time to get serious. Time to put on my podcast reading spectacles and really study this up. So I
my air horn.
Be prepared for the live show. And what about you, Ro?
So I've been a Reese fan since Yes Man came out.
Oh, wow.
So, which was just after Concords. I think it was like between the 2 Concords seasons, but I didn't have access to Concords, so I hadn't seen that. But Yes Man, I remember watching it, and I was just freshly 18 years old, and I was like, I like this funny guy. So I sort of was like a casual Reese fan for years, but like I moved away to uni, life happened, I'd sort of occasionally keep up with what he was doing, but it wasn't like, you know, it was just, if it came up, I'd be like, oh, I know that. I like that guy. And then I watched Our Flag. I came in just after episode 7 and 8 had aired, but before 9 and 10. It just took over my life. Like, the hyperfixation gripped me in a way.
Real.
Oh my God. Like, it was intense. And so I did that thing that you do when you're a hyperfixated neurodivergent, and you look for everything that person has ever done in their whole life. So I was just like on Wikipedia and stuff, and then it mentioned like there's a podcast about cryptids, and I was like, this is amazing. I love cryptids, but like I don't have anyone to talk to about this. And also, like, you guys will, you know what I mean when I say that like podcasts about cryptids are dangerous territory, because you never know when they're gonna suddenly hit that wormhole and you're just like, oh, okay, no, like they're suddenly like full of conspiracy theories and like,
Yeah.
right wing, and I'm just like,
And you're
so
like, nope.
I was like, I'll give it a try. Immediately loved it. Just tore through it. I think I joined the Patreon as like, I think I was like person 101, and now there's like over 700 people.
Oh wow, those men are raking in the dough off of all of us.
Mm-hmm. So I just tore through it, and just I've been hooked from the get go. Like, as soon as I saw our flag means death, everything else, I was like, I need it. Give it to me.
So what happened when you both show up at the venue ready for the show? Anything interesting happen?
Well, I only went the last night and Ray went every night, so Ray should definitely feel this.
Basically, there's this like outdoor pub that's sort of like this big beer garden, and in the corner of this pub beer garden thing, there's like this weird round glass and metal building that's just basically a set of stairs and a lift. And that is the venue that we're going to be in. So we can't get in when I say there's like a performance on like every hour and a half the whole day, there's like 10 performances, and there's 2 little rooms in there. So there's 20 performances in this venue every day. So there are lines, like 2 venues lining up for the same door at once. And it's all a bit chaotic. But there are these like stairs leading into the beer garden, and everyone's basically just sitting on the stairs. I went with my pal Al, who's wasting your gum on Twitter, and we just looked for the shirts. We were like looking for Cryptid Factor shirts. Where are they? Found them, and every day it was just like where there were like different people there every night, but then there was like a core group of people that were there multiple nights, so we'd all find each other and we'd sit on the steps and we'd like trade bracelets or stickers or whatever we had to trade.
So wholesome. Yeah. And I remember when the tickets went up for sale, Rosie was like, you guys don't buy tickets for multiple nights because we want to give everyone a chance to see the show. And so those of you, Ro, and your little cohorts were clearly defying Rosie's.
Well, Al had already bought the tickets before it had been announced, because Dan was supposed to be doing We Can Be Weirdos, which is one of his podcasts.
Yeah.
And we were going to go to that. So Al had been looking and then messaged me and was like, Dan's show isn't there anymore, but look what is here. And we saw the Cryptid Factor, and Al just bought us tickets like that, and then messaged Helena and was like, Helena, what is going on? And that's when Helena was like, how did you guys find that? I'm going to have to announce this tomorrow now. So like me and Al already had our tickets before. And also, like, part of me is like, everything always happens in London. The conventions are always in London. The live shows for everything else are always in London. Reese has done so many comedy shows down there, and he's not come up here. I was like, do you know what? Like, we might as well grab our moment. Like,
yeah.
And
I know for one, I'm going to defy Rosie in the future if ever she's like, you guys only buy tickets for one night. I'm going to buy tickets for every single night.
And they were cheap. Like, tickets were cheap. So it's not even like we were spending huge amonts of money on it.
Yeah.
But
I got like almost, when I went on it, there was like 1 night left and like 2 tickets. So I could have made an enemy for like, well, you could have made an enemy for like Friday basically if I had, because I only saw the announcement. Like, I literally clicked on it like 2 hours after they tweeted about it, and I got one of the last tickets.
Oh my god!
Like, I was like just very lucky because like literally I was like, whatever they have. So it sold out so fast. But the venue is what, like 90.
Yeah.
90.
I didn't realize we didn't realize how small the venue was until all the tickets had sold. And that's when we were like, what? Oh, okay, it's only 90. But I mean, there were plenty of people there who'd never even heard of the show before, who just had picked up tickets.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just really nice. The venue was in this beer garden that had food, it had drink, it had loos. So we all just hung out there the whole time. Like, before, after, fun. But it's the only way in is through the front door. So like Reese and Buttons and Dan would like come and go occasionally, and we'd all just be like,
since this is a podcast, you can't see what Ro is doing right now. Ro is like doing the silent scream, hand over your mouth, like pointing and big eyes and excited thing. Yeah, that's so cool. What was your favorite moment from all of your time being there?
I think it was the day 2 when they were doing Weekly World News. There was this whole build up about they'd like recreated the voice box of a mummy. right? So we were going to get to hear what a mummy sounded like.
This is the story that came out, what, like 3-4 years ago? This is like very right?
So
like breaking news.
There was like a whole big thing, a whole big like build up, and they started playing the video. And if you haven't seen the pictures, they had this TV and someone had to hold this massive TV up, right? So Dan is holding this big TV. His arms are shaking. He's like, so Buttons is trying to play this video. It takes ages to play. And then there's this like build up in this video that's like, whoa, oh my God, look at this. And like clips of mummies and stuff. And then it's like, and here is the sound of the mummy's voice. And it just goes, and Reese was laughing so hard he genuinely looked like he was in pain. It was everyone, like none of us could catch our breath. It was so funny. And then he kept bringing the sound up for the rest of the show, and every time he would just kept going it was so funny, and I really hope that makes it into the episode, because it was just...
They did say in London that absolutely nothing from Edinburgh is making it into any kind of podcast, because there was no... I mean, they recorded it on like a phone. Like it was... So that might have to be something that lives on in like stories and memory. Because I don't think we're ever gonna hear. Well, maybe we will, but
it's going to become like lore, legend.
Yeah, they're the cryptid episodes of the Cryptid Factor.
The best ones.
Did either of you get to be there on that night where the Cryptid boys had beers with everyone?
Me and Al had left, because me and Al were going back and forth from Glasgow every night, which is like an hour and a half drive. So
yeah.
We like had hung around that night for a while, but I think by about 10:30 we were like, we have to go home tonight.
Yeah.
And then I got a text. Jode was like, "Oh my God, look, and I was like, damn it."
Oh wow, Jode is the hero. I feel like Jode is like the subject of all of our violent jealousy. Jode and gang. It's also popular culture. There are a few others on Twitter who got to have beers with the Cryptid boys. And I want to know every detail. What happened that night?
Me too.
So if anyone wants to leak some spicy deets, some hot goss, I want it.
I mean, I went for a drink with Jess the next day, who is Unpopular Culture, and she was just saying like the Cryptid guys were kind of sat on their own table and they were kind of sat on their own table, but they were like chatting really nicely. But sometimes they'd chat and they were just being like really chill, just kind of like asking people about like, you know, cryptid stories and what they do, and like there wasn't like anything super exciting. But I think, you know, obviously the whole experience. I mean, I got to buy Buttons a drink, and then he immediately left. So
pretty good.
Like, all right. He was like, "I'll buy you one in London." I was like, "You wait though, will you?" Like,
okay, Alice, tell us. So you bought Buttons a drink.
So
did you get to talk to him?
Yeah, I talked to him a bit after the show, and I gave him this embroidery I'd made, and he was trying to show Reese, and Reese went, "Yeah, that's great." Just like immediately put it in a box. I was like, "Take it away." Like, I don't think she saw it, but Buttons saw it anyway. And I'm very much that person that like, if I'm at a conference or a party, like it's the ADHD, right? Generally, but like I'm always like going around like, can I get anyone a drink, or like so one of the things I just need to like be moving, I guess.
Yeah.
So at this point, Dan had already left. Reese and Buttons had like moved away from us, not that far, like 5 meters. So what's that, like 20 feet? I'm so bad. Like, anyway, pretty close, but like very clearly delineating that they did not wish to continue like hanging out with us. You know what I mean? Like they were still hanging around in the venue bar, but they were like talking to their friends, and it was very much like, okay, like time with you nerds is over. Like,
yeah.
I was like just walking past. I kind of Buttons like smiled, and I said, "Oh, can I get you? Do you want anything to drink?" Because I could see that everyone else in his group had a drink except him, which is like very Buttons as well. Like, why are you person? And he was like, "Oh, I'll get a lemonade, please." And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I'll get you whatever you like, but you just want lemonade." And he was like, yeah. So I get him a lemonade, and then I turn back, and he's like, "Oh, actually, can I have a whiskey and lemonade?" At which point I said no, because like if you try and order a whiskey and lemonade in like Scotland, I mean, you will just be asked to leave. Like,
so that's that's like
you can't drink whiskey and lemonade.
No, because whiskey's like a Scottish thing, like a very pure.
Like, you can't drink. You just can't. I'm sorry if somebody listening.
It's not allowed.
Being like a huge Scotch whiskey and lemonade fan, but like that is not a combination that many people would espouse. And so I was like, I really don't want to order that. Like, it's really weird. And also, I've already got you a pint of lemonade. And like, so he was like, rum. So I got him double rum. So I was like, at least like, you know, double in a pint. Like,
Yeah.
wanted.
That's
Yeah.
weird as
You're not
right.
gonna get me drunk. I was like, that's no. And then I just left. So that was it. So I kind of like
Oh, okay.
and then just like was looking like the terror in Reese's eyes at this point. Like, is this person gonna try and join us? And I was like, I'm just handing the drink over and leaving. Like, I am not foisting myself on this like very private group of people.
I know
But
that
yeah.
face though that you are describing of Reese being like, please, dear God, no.
The eyes like widen and then unfocus because you go into an internal monologue, right? Where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
God, that person isn't coming in. Like,
Yeah.
like, bring a drink, I promise.
It makes me wonder what sort of trauma Reese has had in his past with fans being fanning a little too close to the sun.
If you look into stuff that's happened with him in the past, you will absolutely find stuff where you're like, oh, I understand why he is a little bit removed. he had a stalker.
Oh
Yeah.
no, did he? Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, that explains things.
Also, like he was really nice, but like I feel like everyone was really respectful, and like as soon as he started to sort of give the signals, like he was never like go away, but like when he would
What I
sort
mean,
of,
like they could be like a few meters away and people would like it was clear that
so
they were
nice.
like, okay, we're done now.
yeah,
I will
everyone
also
really-
say that at one point I asked if I could talk to Dan about something and he was like, okay, I'm going to go and buy a drink. And I was like, walk and talk like we're in the West Wing. And he's like the West Wing. Like we were looking into the bar together. Like we were CJ and Toby or something. And that was very interesting.
I love him so much.
Like cheating all the dweebs. Like the West Wing. Like the West.
Alice, was it you where when Fat Man Scoop came on, both me and you, and I was like standing right beside Reese at that point, but was it you where we were both like, you got $100 bill, put your hands up? And I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, is he gonna just remember the random person that was standing right behind him and immediately started like yelling,
I think-
yeah man, Scoop.
I mean, if you're still at the venue when the Fat Man's, because as I say, like the venues stay open till like 4 or 5 in the morning. So like 10, 11 is like still early, like by venue standard in Edinburgh. But yeah, at that point you can see that Reese is like, yes, I would like to leave now, please. Like favorite moment, by the way, very briefly.
Yes, I was going to ask you that next.
Apart from the worm, which I think, we had 2 versions of the worm. So I think we'll come on to this. And I asked a lot of people what their favorite moments were. And a lot of people were like, oh, the fact that they're really good friends and, just the vibes and stuff. I was kind of obsessed with that weird, Buttons had this like tiny like apothecary case that he was like pouring drinks out of. And that actually in some ways was my favorite because it was so mysterious. And I still don't know what it was or why it was.
It's a tantalus.
It's a what? Say that again.
I think it's probably a tantalus. It's like an old-fashioned thing which you keep booze in. I know because I work in an antique shop.
I have never heard that word before.
Great word.
Say it one more time. So
Tantalus.
Tantalus.
Yeah, it's like a leather case and it has bottles inside it and you can fill the bottles with alcohol of your choosing. But I don't really know much about words, but I wonder if it's something to do with the word tantalize as well.
Yeah.
Tantalize people with your tantalus.
And so about how big was this little briefcase thing?
It was like, it looked like between a briefcase and like, the little tiny suitcases like air hostesses or Avon ladies used to have, like,
Okay.
kind of like I'm trying to think how to describe it, like shoulder width, I guess, no more than that. And like almost head height, I would say, actually.
And it has a little handle on it?
Yeah, and it's like a church shape almost,
Okay.
right? So it's got like a little roof. But yeah, he was just like getting random stuff out of there, like both times, and like pouring them shots. And then like Reese is like, "Why are you getting alcohol?" Like I just thought it was incredibly enjoyable and like.
So these boys were drinking all throughout the show.
They had like beers.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And then they were having like one shot when I was there anyway.
yeah, it like progressed as they went on. So like the first day was water, and then like Tuesday, Wednesday there was beer. Or not Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, that was day 3 and 4. No, so like the first 2 days was water. Then like the second set of 2 days was beer, and then there was like whiskey towards the end, but it was just like a little bit. But there was the last night or the night before the last night, Alice, where
No, I didn't get to see this,
Yeah.
but I know what you're gonna say.
Buttons accidentally poured whiskey on himself. It was so funny. He was giving out these shots because he got the whiskey in at Loch Ness. So he was giving the shot. He gave one to Dan and one to Reese and one for himself. And then Reese and Dan took their shots and put it on their head. But Buttons forgot that he had alcohol in his, so did that, and Reese just pointed at him and laughed and was like, I knew you were going to do that. It was very funny.
I just have to ask this as a Scottish person. You've been to Loch Ness before, I'm guessing.
I have not.
You have not? Wow.
I haven't had a chance really to go exploring, but it's on the list. I would love to go, but I've just never, like, you know that thing where you live somewhere so you don't tend to explore it as much.
Yeah.
It was really funny because on the day they went to Loch Ness, Dan was live at like 2:30 and they were on the water, and everyone who knows that part of Scotland was just like, what the fuck are they doing? Because they need to get, sorry, like, what are they doing?
No, you can swear. It's
they need to be here for their tech check and stuff, and that on a good day is a 3-hour drive, and the show's at 7 and they have to be there for like 6:15 to do tech. We were like, are they gonna make it? I finished my job at 5:00. I finished my job at 4:15. I finished early that day. Al picked me up and we drove from Glasgow, got food, and we were sitting on the steps by the time that they made it. That was kind of close, boys.
Were they racing
late,
in?
Yeah, so I wasn't quite there. I'd gone off to the loo, unfortunately, so I missed them. But apparently as they came in, they were like, we made it.
Well, Buttons was driving, so, you know, that's why they made it.
I think it was just really nice to see them in that element. Like, it was so obvious that they were all, like, the barrier between audience and them was, like, much different to London, because it was so fewer people. And as Rose says, like, with the festival, you know, because most people will perform at one venue for a whole month, right? They were only doing, like, 5 nights, but everyone else is there the whole time. So you very quickly get this camaraderie between people performing in certain venues and like people and audiences. And it felt like they were really riffing off that. Whereas obviously in London, it's like, a couple of hundred people. It's like a completely different experience. So I think it was really special. And I think they are hoping to go back next year. And I can only hope that they manage to get maybe a slightly bigger venue, but like not too big, so that they can still hang out with us afterwards. Like, that's my very sneaky hope.
Yeah, like,
definitely.
Not to like, I'm really mindful where I don't want to make people feel FOMO, right? Because I know what that's like. I don't want people to be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But like,
ooh, maybe we should call this the FOMO episode. Because that's basically we're trying to like give you the experience of, you know.
I do feel like us as fans that were there all just hanging out, because part of the best part of it was like making friends there, or like seeing online friends and stuff. And like the guys did hang out for ages, and we did get to chat to them about all kinds of stuff. And like Buttons gives the best hugs ever. And we did just get to like chat to them and stuff, which was really, really nice. We all talked about how we all felt very, very lucky to see them in this little venue where it was so unpolished and just absolutely chaotic. And everyone was like, we sort of felt like that was what the Cryptid Factor was meant to be. And it felt like an episode. And apparently, like, towards the start of the week, we've been chatting to Dan, and he was like, yeah, Reese is a bit nervous that, like, it's not working or whatever, like, because he's never done a live show in this format before. And I got to be like, no, it literally feels like watching it, like listening to it at home, but like you're there. Like, it feels exactly like
it's like, don't kid yourself, it's just chaotic when it's recorded as well. Like, I don't know if they thought it was more chaotic, because it felt the same.
Yeah, I feel like maybe because they could see people looking at them, they were like, oh shit, people have paid money for this. Like, but it was just getting to see them all be pals. Like, you could tell how much they all love each other, which I just love. It was just so nice.
So wholesome. So Hattie, what was the London experience like?
Well, I think it was quite different to the Edinburgh one, but it was really nice because beforehand, like, quite a lot of us met up, which was really cool because I've never met any crew in real life before. And it was just so like lovely that it kind of brings everyone together, and we were all chatting and stuff. And then we went down to the venue and everyone hung out a bit more and like swapped all stickers and things. That's such a nice thing. Like, everyone's always making bracelets and like little things, and yeah, it was just really lovely. And then we went in to sit down.
So where did you guys meet up before the show?
It was Beer and Burger, which is like just a bar like just up the road, and I booked a massive table and I was like, well, I hope some people turn up.
And did
like,
people turn up?
Oh yeah, loads of people. It was really nice.
Yeah.
It was like a classic thing where there was like a number of us, and then we were all planning on leaving. And then I said to Hattie, I've just got texts from like 3 people. There's like 20 people coming, like now. So we were like, maybe we'll wander over to the venue. And it was like, no, we're being joined by like a very large number of people.
Proper
so
crew.
It's nice because I think the people there earlier on were like me, Hattie, maybe who don't. I know like people. I've met lots of people before, but you know, I don't have like my clique. So it was more, and then like the big crew turned up, and it was like suddenly there was like loads of people there. But I got to introduce lots of people to lots of people, which personally for me is like taking hard drugs, like a really great. So I thought it was really. I've never taken hard drugs. I'm just like that's what I imagine it feels like is when you get to introduce people who are, you know, will get on.
Oh yeah,
at each other. Like that's what I assume it feels like. So that was
It's
really
like being
great.
a fairy godmother.
And Hattie was amazing for organising it as well.
good job, Hattie.
I just like people, kind of. Yeah, no, it was really good. Yeah, it was lovely.
I will say the boys were late, both the last night in Edinburgh and the London show. So both shows I went to, I actually want some money back because they did not perform for that allocated time. And in the case of London, it's because they decided to replicate those, I don't know if you saw the cardboard desks and pinboards that they had built. So they decided to rebuild them for London where they could have had desks. I mean, it's in a huge conference center. It's like full of offices. There are many desks, but they decided to remake the cardboard pinboard desk. And that's why the show started late, because they were still up there making the desks. Like
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
I
mean, it's brilliant and I love it.
Very Cryptid fact.
Hilarious.
It was great. Yeah.
So you meander over to the venue, and what was that like?
It was all right. Just a big old London venue. Felt a bit like being at a uni, weirdly, like a big conference centre. But yeah, no, it was really nice. And there was more crew there. Literally pretty much everyone there, I think, was an Our Flag fan. But typically I ended up sitting next to the person that wasn't. And I found out because our feet touched. And I went, oh, foot touch. Should we run away and open an inn? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, have you not seen the Gay Pirate show? And she was like, the what? And I was like,
What? What? Oh my
So
God.
that was fun. And then she sat there like, oh God, who is this weird on their own next to me?
How is
So that was
someone going to a live Cryptid Factor show and they don't know Our
But
Flag?
I will say, apparently, I don't know if it was Ro or someone else about this story, that somebody was sat next to someone in the live show in Edinburgh and they were like, where's David Farrier? Who hasn't been on it for what, like 3-4
years or something.
Many years.
They were like, who's this guy? So clearly there were people like attending these shows. It was like 95% flag people and then 5% people who heard this podcast when it was probably on New Zealand radio and were like, yes, I'm going to go.
Yeah, that's what this lady was. She was like a proper hardcore fan, like of just Cryptid Factor. And I was like, wow, you're rare. And she was like, yeah, I know. Everyone's a bit, yeah. I was like, welcome to the crew.
Okay.
Part of the crew, part of the show.
I do hope she will watch the show after.
I did my best to sell it.
Okay.
It's like, does it have any cryptids in it? Yes, it does. It has a mermaid
Yeah.
Yes.
and a birdman. So
Yeah. If she's
you're
listening to
listening,
this, you
watch
should
it.
definitely watch it.
Yeah. Okay. And what was your favorite part of the show?
Oh, well, I think one of my favourite parts was, so notoriously, if you've listened to the Cryptid Factor, you'll know it's introduced as the Cryptid Factor.
Yeah.
With Rhys Darby and Dan Schreiber.
You did that really well.
Thank you. But then when they went on stage this time, it was like the Cryptid Factor with Rhys Darby, Dan Schreiber, and Buttons. And the crowd just went nuts. Like everyone was like cheering and clapping. And it was a really big thing that Buttons was on the titles because he never has been. And they were all hugging. The boys were hugging. And it was just so lovely and heartwarming. And I absolutely loved it.
and they also announced that he would be on them going forward in theory. So that's because it's like I love a running joke, but I also am like
I feel sorry for him. Yes.
And like the fact that he had to sleep on the couch in Loch Ness and drive and doesn't get in the title, I'm like, you need to put some respect on his name or things are going to get rowdy. Because I think
fans are going to come after you.
It was funny at Edinburgh, whenever they did, sorry to jump back to Edinburgh, but like whenever they did the introduction to Edinburgh, it was with Rhys Darby and Dan Schreiber and all of you, which made everyone laugh. But then Buttons brought it up one time and was like, oh yeah, but like I can't be in the title because Rhys, you said like in episode 30 that if you put me in the title, that we'll never record again. And Reese was like, I don't remember that, but clearly it stuck with you. And he was like,
Oh,
so I'm glad he's in the title now.
Yeah.
And you people in London, you got to do this wonderful thing on an escalator. Tell us the escalator story.
can I do my favorite bit first?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you need to do your favorite bit, Alice.
You'll have to reorganize this. My favorite
Carly
bit
loves to
was-
edit.
We have to talk about it because I said let's leave it for later. It was the worm. I think for many people this was a sexual awakening that no one was ready for. There is no other way to put it. Ro is laughing so much that they have muted themselves. Buttons, they're all obviously gorgeous, lovely guys. I don't think anyone expected Buttons to have the physicality to first rig and set the television using only gaffer tape and then start dancing and do the worm across the stage twice. So in Edinburgh and then again in London. And we're not just talking like he can sort of do it once, like he's really good at doing the worm.
Really good. Like, it's
And
crazy.
I've never seen anyone do the worm up close. I'm not the same person I was when I went in. I was on the front row. I was very near. Yeah, and blinking a lot. I'm not the same. I'm not the same person I was.
I could feel everyone just like fanning themselves and being like, oh my God.
It
was
got
just
hot
a
in
great,
that room.
nerdy, self-effacing guy suddenly starts doing like this dance
swag.
move, takes the glasses off, does a shot, and is then in front of you. And he'd done it. The reason he was doing it was because the first night when they got there, they'd gone out clubbing and a teenage woman or like a very young woman had started doing it. And so he'd started doing it spontaneously in a nightclub in Edinburgh at like 4 a.m.
I feel like that's something that you have to practice a long time to get good at.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I
that's
can't
what
imagine
makes it
just like
so
going down and
adorable.
doing the worm. Like
It's really difficult.
I
You
don't
to
have
be
the
quite
upper
strong.
body strength and the core strength required to do that.
It was
So how long
incredible.
has he been practicing for? We'll never know. But I was obsessed, obviously.
I was
We all were.
when he got up to do it, I was like, is this going to be... Because Dan had hyped it up, right? Because he showed a video of like the person that then went to do the worm after in the club had face planted, right?
Yeah.
But we hadn't seen Buttons doing it. And Dan was like, Buttons is really, really, really good at it. And I was like, he's hyped this up so much. Is this going to be a 50-year-old guy who still thinks that he's 20? You know what I mean? Like, and then he did it. And it was just like, oh my God. And it wasn't even like, it was really fluid. And I was
It
just
was
like,
very fluid. I was tested.
oh my God. Wow.
Alice, you look quite fluid.
It was awesome. But it's also like, for all that they're like teasing each other and stuff, like they'd never have got him to do it if he couldn't do it, right? Which is what you realize, like as soon as, and I loved when he was suspending the TV. Reese was like, I'm not bothered. I've known him for 20 years. Like he'll do this. Like they clearly have planned nothing, but at the same time, like they know each other well enough that even when they're teasing each other, it's like they know that they're going to come through, or they know that they're going to kind of like, it's all done like with that kind of friendship where you can do that. Like
It's kind of seeing that like really lovely friendship between them all, that like they could just talk about nothing or everything, and it's just like just so lovely and wholesome and like real.
And I love that they have this like soft masculinity with each other where like they talk about each other, or they like hug each other, or they touch each other in a way where you can tell there's like no hint of self-consciousness about it, or like, oh, like we're blokes, so like we can't like hug each other and tell each other that we love each other because like blokes don't do that. It's just this really nice.
I heard Reese called Buttons babe, and then there's that gorgeous photo where Buttons has like his hand over Reese's hand, and they're like sitting together, so wholesome.
So after each show, there was obviously like a bit of a scramble for like kind of half an hour or so, people getting stuff signed or pictures or whatever, and then people would like sort of wonder, and you could see as soon as Reese got to just like sort of be with Dad and Buttons, you could see him sort of just relax. Like he kind of went from like, oh, I have to be in sort of performance mode, to just being like, I'm with my pals now. Like you could just see that weight come off him, which was lovely.
Oh, shall we hear the escalator story next?
So yeah, the boys came out afterwards, and Reese did a really lovely sort of speech to everyone, saying how much he kind of appreciated us all being there and things, and it was just really sweet. And he kind of said that they couldn't hang around because they were going to meet some very old friends afterwards, and then they took a big group selfie picture with us all, which was really lovely of them. And so then Buttons had this idea of, oh guys, let's go up the escalator. So he goes up the escalator holding his phone in front of him, and then the idea was everyone else gets on the escalator behind them and he takes a massive selfie. So they're kind of going up and up this escalator in this big crowd of people, and me and my friend are standing at the bottom going, they're going to come down the other side, aren't they? And we were like, yeah. So we waited for them to get up the top. And as they were coming down the other side of the escalator, we got on, started going up. And then as we were going down, they were high-fiving everyone. So we, high-fived Reese. Haven't washed my hands since. No, I have. Weird. Yeah, high-fived them all. And they went all the way down. And the best thing was when they got to the bottom, like everyone kind of went nuts, like in a lovely way. And it was like Buttons, I think someone on Twitter said it was like Buttons was a returning astronaut or something, because everyone was like going around and hugging him, and he was in the middle of the crowd, and we could see it from the top, and it was just the sweetest thing. It was so charming. Yeah, it was so lovely. And
as usual, by the way, I was lying for attention. I didn't not go on the escalator because I'm not a dweeb. I was with my friend Aspen, who's a wheelchair user. Because they couldn't go on the escalator, I was like, I'll hang with you at the bottom. And then Buttons decided to stop at the bottom of the escalator and keep filming, which, famously bad idea, causing this like enormous pileup of people. Like Reese was like falling out. Like, so that was great. We actually got to witness that whole thing. But it looked fantastic. It looked so chaotic. And the venue staff were like to us, like, what is happening? Like, why is everyone on the escalator? Like, that's not safe.
Both escalators were full at one point, and it was just the most wonderful, chaotic, lovely thing. It was like really sweet of Buttons as well, because I was like, they can't hang around, but that's a really nice way of just getting everyone kind of involved and like feeling like they had a little moment. And yeah, it was so lovely. And then they sort of, as they were going, they were still like talking to people and things as they were walking out the venue. And they were so sweet.
Yeah, as Buttons was leaving, I was like, oh, the gift I gave him, the name tag fell off the back in Edinburgh. And I only found it in my pocket afterwards. Like, I just assumed it was still on there. So I said, this is kind of cringe, but can I put my name in your phone like a groupie? But like, because he said he's going to put it in the Cryptid bar, right? And I was like, I'd really like it if there was like something to have my name on it, because otherwise it's just like an anonymous, like... So he was like, yeah, get on the escalator. And then everyone was like cheering and waving goodbye. And as Hattie said, it was like an accident. So I started like blowing kisses to everyone. I was like, no one is ever going to cheer for me like this. So I thought I might as well just enjoy it in the moment. Pretend it's for me, but it's just me and Buttons. And then they were waving goodbye and hugging everyone at the end. And Buttons was like leaving. And I realized I'm still holding his phone. So I was like they're almost at the door. I was like, I still have your, but that's how chill.
Yeah.
I was like, and he's like, my phone. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm waving. So that was really fun, but yeah, kind of insane. Like,
it was lovely.
The
Really
nice man.
And it was really sweet as well, because it was actually my friend was chatting to Reese afterwards, because I thought I was all right at going up and talking to people, but she's incredible. She's just like so lovely. She just kind of like went up to him and started chatting to him about things. And so she was showing him some artwork that she's doing, because we're doing a charity zine thing to raise money for Gaza. And she showed him a Mersteed like Barbie picture she'd done. And it was really lovely. And he was like, oh, that's really cool. And then he started telling us about when he was filming the Mersteed scenes and how it was his favorite one and everything. And it was just really nice like to chat to him about that, because he was just kind of like genuinely really loved it. Like, he was so enthusiastic about it. He was going, it was no visual effects. It was like, we had all the costume and it was made by someone in New Zealand and everything, like as we were walking out the venue. And then he held the door open for us. And I was like, oh, what a gent. What a lovely guy. And
oh my
I was
God.
like, he didn't have to chat to us or like talk to us about that as we were going out. But yeah, he was like really chill and nice. And I was like, oh, bless him.
Wholesome. This is a good part to kind of wrap us down, unless there's any final tidbits that anyone wants to share. I think you guys
I asked a
covered
question in London and they clearly had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, it's cool. It's fine.
You had a little embarrassing moment. Was it like
I wasn't embarrassed.
Okay. No, I thought you were amazing. You stood, like, but like, has anyone got any questions to ask us? And you like stood up, put your hand in the air, you were like, pick me.
I put my hand up and then they nodded and then I stood up and everyone's like,
oh okay, sorry.
Like, I will not take this slander. But they took 3 questions from the audience and I don't think they understood mine at all. And I was like,
I thought it was really good. I got it. It was about Grendel in Beowulf.
It was about Grendel. I think my mistake was going medieval. It's kind of niche.
And what was your question about Beowulf? And
my question was, so the monster in Beowulf, Grendel, and Grendel's mum, who, as I mentioned at the show, is played by Angelina Jolie in the most recent movie, which is not how she is described originally. Like, they are said to be descended from the race of giants, but they like live on the moors and they skulk around and stuff. And I was like, could you see them as being cryptids? because they're kind of like they come at night, you can't really see them, and they were like, much to ponder, you know, like it's that kind of response like that I give when I don't know the answer to something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a really interesting thought, you know.
Yeah.
Moving on.
I think you did great.
Well, the
Good
other
job.
questions were also great. So Ben asked one about as a zookeeper about cryptids, and then there was one like if you could have a pet cryptid. So they did a Q&A bit in London, which is really nice, and I hope they bring that back if they do Edinburgh again, because I thought actually that worked really well. But yeah, that was my last.
That was nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So have you read any fan fiction lately that you want to shout out and talk about?
Yes.
How do you go?
So I'm obsessed with Don't Panic by Kalan's Phantom at the moment, which I have also been podficking as it comes out. But it's really lovely. It's a modern AU story. I feel like I've shouted it out before, but I will keep shouting it out.
Yeah.
It's really
Pitch it
sweet.
to us.
So Steve's really drunk at a bar, and Ed's a nice, helpful bartender who like takes him home and looks after him. And then it kind of goes from that, and they like kind of become friends, and it's got kind of misunderstandings, and it's very cute, and I love it. And the last one is coming out on Monday, so I'm kind of sad, but it's absolutely brilliant. Can I also shout out the zine we're doing for charity? Yes. So it is the Steed Bonnet zine on Twitter, and it's coming out in September, October, and it's raising money for Care for Gaza. So it's going to be really good. It's all about Steed and fashion, and yeah, lots of artwork and fics.
Thank you. That's awesome. And Alice, do you have any fan fiction to share?
I'm like a very like baby newbie with the fan fiction, but I started writing one, and I want to talk about my mentor / lover. She's not really my lover, she'll be really Jen, his Twitter handle and AO3 handle is, I don't even know how you say it out loud, but like Meta, META, and then Venhorst, VEHORST. It's absolutely amazing. And they have a story that I've just started reading called The Wondrous Journey of Stede Bonnet, Human Pirate Captain, which is about like Steed as an alien coming to Earth. And if you haven't read it, it's just phenomenal. And I've only just started it, but like, my God, I'm loving it. So I'm really looking forward to like getting into bed in like 20 minutes.
Amazing.
Amazing. And you're starting to write your own, did you say, as well?
Yeah, I'm kind of dipping my toe. So I decided to write a detective story. That's really hard. Like the actual detective bit is the bit that I'm struggling with. Like, so I'm really dipping a toe in, but like Jen is reading my chapters for me, and it's just amazing. I couldn't really ask for someone better to be like guiding me through it, because I'm quite new to fanfic, like generally only in the last year. So I'm still like catching up with all you guys.
Can't wait to read yours when it's done.
I read fan fiction like I need oxygen. So I went through my most recent bookmarks, picked out some that I really loved, and I'll be really quick about it. But also, if anyone is interested, all of my bookmarks are public. So if you go to my AO3, you can look through my bookmarks. I think there's almost 1,000.
And what's your AO3?
Ramsey, so RA_Baggins, like The Hobbit. So yeah, Ramsey_Baggins.
Okay.
But I just have a fic that just went up that I baited for Liz, but who is unencrypted, with art by Tabby Stardust. It's called Music to My Tears. It is a heavy Wump fic. So read the tags. Wump is not something I ever thought I was into until this fandom. But Ned Lowe is alive and kidnaps Steed. It's very good. There's a really good fic called Too Big for Your Boots. It's a one-shot by Anathema Device, where Steed is a boot black, which is awesome because there's not enough boot black stories in general. And Ed owns a leather bar. Foxtails has a story called Send Out the Morning Birds, which is like post APOC. So it's like the recovery after the climate apocalypse, and it's beautiful. The Shitty Dead Dad Club is Reverse Big Bang, which is really fun. Another Reverse Big Bang with Nair of Fear of Drowning by Decarios and Self-Indulgent. An Unknown Sailor by Passing Fair and Mary. Another one that I read is called Oracle Blossom Cove by Quaintly Fig. And I feel like it hasn't got, like, people haven't really read it, and I think it's because it's a middle school AU, and I generally stay away from, like, age down stories.
Yeah.
But someone recommended it to me, and I was like, I might as well give it a go. And it's really cute. It's Ed and Steed meeting when they're like 10 years old, and it's about like their friendship progressing into high school. And then there's going to be a sequel about them like becoming adults, but it's just really lovely.
Aww.
So I'll stop there because I could literally go on for days.
I'm going to check out your bookmarks. It sounds like you've got amazing taste.
Yeah, I think there's almost 1,000 flag bookmarks in there. So
wow, I'm going to lose my voice trying to do all them.
Amazing. And so for everyone, what are you working on right now? Where can people find you? Hattie, do you want to go?
Yeah, so I am Baby Kraken on SoundCloud. Come and listen to my voices. I'm currently working on Don't Panic by Kalan's Phantom, and I've got a big list of fics I'm doing. I'm doing some more canon ones at the moment because we've been doing a lot of AU. I'm also Baby Kraken Pod on Twitter, so come and shout at me.
Alice, do you want to be found?
Yeah,
Okay,
so my Twitter handle is These Are the Kids, which I had to explain to someone the other day because they were like, that's weird. And I was like, demon, I'm the fucking devil, and these are the kids. Yeah,
these are the kids.
Yeah, it makes
like
sense.
shaking my faith in my own Twitter handle, because as soon as I watched that episode, like as I was watching it, I like paused it and like changed my Twitter. So, like,
I love that.
That's my Twitter handle, and I've got like a link tree. I'm working on stuff, mostly textile work at the moment, and mostly for zines. So I can't share it, which is kind of boring. But I do, and this is another great format for a podcast. But I am starting to raise money for other people in the fandom so I already do it through abstract embroideries, which I'm just holding up so that you can see. Yeah, this is buttons and 5Ps. And I'm also going to start doing smaller versions of I made this for the Roach Samba Appreciation Zine.
Oh, it looks like
is it ramen?
Bowl. So I'm going to be making like smaller ones, I hope, in October, November to raise them like the crew who need mutual aid, basically. So if you like sewing or tiny things that look like bowls of ramen or weird water games that look like, basically if you like one thing that kind of looks like another thing, then come and find me.
Those are amazing.
Amazing. And Ro, where can people find you? What are you working on?
So I'm working on a Big Bang fic at the moment, so I can't talk about that, but it's sort of a character study AU that I'm really loving. It's going to be very fluffy and warm.
Oh, we should explain, by the way, what is a Big Bang and what's a reverse Big Bang?
So a Big Bang is where a writer writes a story, and then everyone writes like an anonymous summary of their story, and artists choose which story they want to illustrate and do art for you. And a reverse Big Bang is where an artist makes a piece of art, and then a writer chooses the art and writes a story about it.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
But it's anonymous until posting, so
that's really
I can't
cool.
give it away, but I'm really enjoying writing that. And yeah, my AO3, as I said, is Ramsey_Baggins. My Twitter is where I'm mostly sort of posting, which is Ramsey_B_OFMD, because I had to make an alt, because the people that follow me on Ramsey Baggins would not have cared about the Gay Pirate Show, and it wasn't, and I didn't want to spoiler people because I'm in the UK and we had to wait a long time for it.
Yeah.
Or on my Tumblr, which is just Ramsey Baggins without an underscore, it has a list of everywhere you can find me pinned to the top.
Ooh.
So.
Cool. And this is, yes.
Oh, Carly, I was going to say, sorry, there's one more thing. You just reminded me talking about the Big Bangs. I'd like to shout out. There's an OFMD remix on Twitter going on at the moment, and we need people to sign up. So it's where you can be an artist or you can be a fic writer. You sign up and you remix another person's work in your style. So there's some really good authors on there, and I'm signed up as an artist. So yeah, it's just OFMD remix on Twitter. So go check that out, and
we'll look for that. Perfect.
Thank you.
And this is the Our Flag Means Fanfiction podcast. And if you're into memes and other Our Flag related things, find us on Instagram at Our Flag Means Fanfiction, all one word, and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Ideally 5 stars, but whatever, we're not picky. And a review. It lets people know that Our Flag stuff is still out there. Oh, and I am doing a sign off now. I wrote it down. My sign off. This is my first time doing it officially. Do creations. Be cringe, commit crime.
Goodbye, friends.
Bye.
Bye.